The University of Cambridge was founded in 1209, and after Oxford, Cambridge is the second oldest university in the English-speaking world. As such, both universities share many common characteristics and rivalries, as shown in the yearly boat race held on the River Thames. Cambridge consists of 31 semi-autonomous constituent colleges, but has no actual campus. It is also regarded academically as one of the finest and the richest in terms of endowment in Europe. The colleges I've singled out for special treatment are from the oldest. Peterhouse, which was founded in 1284, has its main site situated on Trumpington Street, to the south of Cambridge's town centre. The buildings date from a wide variety of times and have been much altered over the years. The college is reputed to have been at least partially destroyed by fire in 1420. Clare College is second among the colleges in Cambridge and was founded by Lady Elizabeth de Clare in 1326 and generously endowed several years later by Lady de Burgh. Clare has a much photographed bridge over the River Cam and is the oldest of Cambridge's present structures, being built of stone in 1640 and restored in 1969. Gonville and Caius College, often referred to simply as Caius, was founded in 1348 and is one of the wealthiest. The college has been attended by many students who have gone on to significant accomplishment, including 15 Nobel Prize winners, the second most of any Oxbridge college after Trinity College, Cambridge. The college was first founded as Gonville Hall by Sir Edmund Gonville, rector of Terrington St Clement in Norfolk, making it the fourth oldest surviving college. Corpus Christi College, often shortened simply to Corpus, dates from the 14th century as the only one founded by the townsfolk of Cambridge. It is also the second smallest student body of the traditional colleges of the university, and after Peterhouse. Christ College was founded by William Bingham in 1437 as God's House. In 1505 it changed its name to Christ College and is renowned for educating some of Cambridge's most famous alumni, including Charles Darwin and John Milton. A magnet for tourism is King's Parade in Cambridge, as it holds a central position in the university district of the city. Along the way, one side consisting mostly of businesses and shops front the tourist attractions on the opposite side of King's College, and its Georgian neighbour being the rather sedate Senate House, which is used for award ceremonies and was built in the 1720s. Opposite the Senate House is the Great St Mary's Church, which is the University Church of Cambridge. But firstly, let's look at King's. King's was founded in 1441 by Henry VI, and soon after he founded its sister college in Eton. Originally, King's only accepted students were from Eton. However, the King's plans for the college changed through a scarcity of funds, and the admissions were much broadened. The building of the college's chapel began in 1446 and was finally finished in 1544 during the reign of Henry VIII. King's College Chapel is regarded as one of the greatest examples of late English Gothic architecture. It has the world's largest fan vault, and the chapel's stained glass windows and wooden chancel screen are considered some of the finest from their era. And the glass certainly escaped the attention of iconoclasts, which left the preserved original medieval glass, which can still be seen today. A nearby landmark set into a former bank doorway and near to King's is the marvellous and much photographed Corpus Clock, which was installed in 2008 and was invented, designed and given to Corpus Christi College by Dr. John C. Taylor, a graduate of the college. Sitting atop the clock is a giant grasshopper, or chronophage, meaning time eater, which devours each minute as it passes with a snap of its jaws. St John's College was founded by the Tudor matriarch Lady Margaret Beaufort and established by a charter dated the 9th of April 1511. The site was originally occupied by the Hospital of St John the Evangelist and was probably founded around 1200. The hospital infirmary was located where the east end of the current church now stands. An interesting and highly observable feature of the college is the enclosed 19th century river crossing bridge known as the Bridge of Sighs, although of course it bears little resemblance to the original Venetian bridge. And nearby is the Wren Bridge, which was built to the design of Sir Christopher Wren. The alumni include such historical figures as the poet William Wordsworth, the slavery abolitionist William Wilberforce, and perhaps some darker characters such as Titus Oates, who fabricated a popish plot, a supposed Catholic conspiracy to kill King Charles II, and of course the occultist and alchemist John Dee. Trinity College was founded in 1546 by King Henry VIII. Trinity is one of the largest colleges in Cambridge. A former student, the poet and adventurer Lord Byron, purportedly kept a pet bear while living in the college, and is undoubtedly the richest, with an unproven legend which claims you can walk from Cambridge to Oxford on land still owned by them. One of its past students was Isaac Newton, who developed the theory of gravity whilst observing an apple fall from a tree. And finally, my last college for special attention is Sydney Sussex College, or simply Sydney. The college was founded in 1596. And from its inception, it was a Protestant foundation. A famous, if not infamous, student was the Puritan Oliver Cromwell, who overthrew Charles I and was later signatory to his death warrant. There followed a republic, and he eventually ruled from 1653 until his death in 1658. More on this man a little later. Many of the colleges back onto the River Cam, which flows through the city. The stretch above Jesus Lock is sometimes known as the Middle River, with the section above the mill pond being referred to as the Upper River. Between these 2 points, it passes below the walls of many of the colleges. Here, punts can be hired or chauffeured by experienced staff for a leisurely but sometimes chaotic ride along the backs, which offers grand views of some of the colleges, as well as passing under some famous landmark bridges. This is the section of river most popular with tourists, with its picture postcard views of elegant bridges, green lawns and graceful willows. A short distance from King's Parade lies the hidden gems of the narrow St Edward's Passage. Of particular interest are 2 second-hand bookshops, in the form of the appropriately named Haunted Bookshop and David's, which is just around the corner, and near the delightful church of St Edward King and Martyr, which rather undershadows itself for its pivotal role in the history of the English Reformation. In this now quiet space, you can for a few minutes escape from the masses and enjoy the attractive surroundings. Another landmark worth visiting for free is the Fitzwilliam Museum in Trumpington Street. The museum was founded in 1816 and now contains over 500,000 items and is one of the best museums in the United Kingdom. The Founders Building was constructed through 1837 to 1843, and the museum was finally opened to the public in 1848. The somewhat exquisite Palladian entrance hall was completed in 1875. The museum buildings and separately the boundary along the street frontage are Grade 1 listed and are of national importance. The museum houses huge collections of antiquities from ancient Egypt, Greece and Rome, including exhibits of English and European pottery and glass, furniture, Chinese jades and ceramics from Japan and Korea. In addition, it also premieres work by world-famous artists and also has a fine collection of 20th century art, miniatures, drawings, watercolours, prints and contemporary artworks with exhibitions. There are, in addition to those referenced here, many fine and historic buildings scattered across the city and with many tales to tell. But time does not permit me to share them all. But a journey worth making is the Round Church, or to give its proper title, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, on the corner of Round Church Street and Bridge Street. This church was built around 1130 and is only one of 5 surviving round churches in England, thought to have been built by Crusaders returning from the Holy Land and influenced by the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, which was built on the site of Jesus' tomb. Over the centuries, it has suffered from neglect, modifications, and the unwanted attention of Captain William Dowsing, a 17th century Puritan who, with his troop of iconoclasts, caused considerable damage to its religious furnishings. Despite all and being made redundant for worship due to its size in 1994, it has survived to the present day and is used for exhibitions. Cambridge city centre isn't just about universities and old buildings. It also has historic streets packed with shops, cafes and restaurants, and additionally a very busy daily market where you can buy an array of food or perhaps some goodies to take home. So far I've covered some touristy aspects of Cambridge, but what of its mysteries and hauntings? Cambridge is far quirkier than you think when you peer below modern-day convention to what really lies beneath. And here are some of these oddities for your enjoyment. Let's firstly look at the ghostly legends. King's College, the Gibbs Building. One story says that a man called Barrett was a strange fellow who stored a coffin in his room. After a night filled with screaming, Barrett's friends found him dead the following day, his body laid out in the coffin. On the anniversary of Barrett's death, his screams are said to echo around the building. And Peter Haining claims the cries belonged to a Mr. Pote, who cursed the building after being forced to move away. Cambridge, New Court Trinity. The author T.C. Lethbridge reported seeing a ghost during his time at the university. He mistook the figure as a porter, though upon reflection realised that the man was wearing a top hat, which apparently porters only did on a Sunday, and it wasn't a Sunday. Lethbridge's friend, present in the same room during the sighting, failed to perceive the figure. Peterhouse, Cambridge. A man called Dawes was a former Peterhouse bursar who hanged himself in September 1789 after an election scandal resulted in an unpopular fellow becoming master of Peterhouse. In April 1997, a butler and a waiter spotted a white figure as it moved between the spiral staircase and the centre of the combination room, the location where Dawes is thought to have committed suicide. In November of the same year, unexplained knockings was heard and once again a strange figure was spotted by butlers. Around the same time, Andrew Murison, the college treasurer, also heard knockings prior to seeing a benign figure in the dining room. An exorcism was considered if the entity appeared again, but Dawes appears to be silent once again. The mulberry tree in the garden at Christ College, Cambridge. A tall elderly gentleman wearing a beaver hat by the name of Round is said to have murdered the only doctor who had the skill to save his dying girlfriend. Thus his ghost walks the grounds in the area around the mulberry tree in regret. According to another version of the same story, Christopher Round was involved in a love affair with a Lady Mary Clifford, but unfortunately for Mr. Round, so was a fellow scholar, Philip Collier. Sadly, one evening after the two gentlemen had been heavily drinking, Mr. Collier fell into the open-air swimming pool situated in the college grounds. But instead of helping his colleague, Mr. Round ignored Collier's cries for help and left him to drown. It is now said that Mr. Round takes regular moonlit walks around the grounds, and apparently carrying the guilt of his actions. Corpus Christi College, Cambridge. A Dr. Butts took his life on Easter Sunday 1632 and apparently was found hanging by his garters in his room after suffering from what would now be described as depression. The doctor has appeared several times during the early 20th century, described as being dressed in white, having long hair and a gash around his neck. Another and perhaps more fuller version was that in 1632 the joint university vice-chancellor and master of corpus, a Henry Butts, was found hanged in the old master's lodge above the kitchens. It is reported that his ghost became so agitated that in the 1880s cooks refused to enter the kitchens alone after nightfall, and that a fellow was found crawling onto the roof to escape the tormented noise of the spirit. Students apparently have attempted to exorcise the figure in 1904 and yet never fully succeeding, and leading of course to multiple students rushing into the lodge upon hearing the ensuing noise. The ghost has lingered on and has been spotted sporadically throughout the 20th century, and no doubt persists today. And the kitchen of the building is reputedly haunted by the lover of a Dr. Spencer's daughter. One day when her father was out, she invited a man called James to the master's lodge for tea. She heard her father come back rather unexpectedly, and as he is climbing the stairs, Elizabeth panics and tells James to go into the cupboard and to be quiet until her father is gone. When her father arrived, he was very suspicious and made her pack to go on holiday. She had no choice but to obey him. They left immediately for a month, and when she came back, she asked about James, but nobody had seen him for ages. As there was no sign of him anywhere, she suddenly panicked and went to the master's lodge and opened the cupboard. And there is James dead inside. The cupboard apparently could not be opened from the inside. At Sydney Sussex College, Cambridge. A spectral pale yellow head without ears was apparently spotted floating around the chapel court in 1967 by John Emsley. The head is said to be that of Cromwell. His skull was finally laid to rest under the college's antechapel in 1960, its exact location being kept a secret. As far as is known, the head was only encountered once, although around the same time students were said to have experienced cold spots and the smell of rotting meat. Another ghost reputedly to haunt the site, and reported as being lackluster compared to Cromwell, is that of an elderly university don, dressed in grey, who moves from the campus towards Christ College. Clare College, Cambridge. Clare College was founded originally by Richard de Badiou, but later refounded by an Elizabeth de Clare. Elizabeth de Clare was married against her will at just 12 years of age, and apparently to the wealthiest man in England, and he died shortly after the wedding. She soon found a second husband, another wealthy man who also died shortly after getting married, and then a third husband who died in mysterious circumstances. By the age of 26, Elizabeth became the wealthiest woman in Europe, but when rumours about her seeking a fourth husband spread, she was apprehended by a mob who tortured her until she confessed to murder. Local men tied her up and put her on a boat which they allowed to float under Clare Bridge, and from where they fired burning arrows at the boat, sending her to a painful death. Her ghost is not only said to hunt the river, but also to hate men. St. John's College, the ghost of James Wood. The most famous of college ghosts is that of a Dr. James Wood. He was an incredibly poor student, and so poor that he couldn't even afford to light his room. He used to sit on the staircase of the second court and use the light coming in from the outside to see his work at night. He eventually went on to become the master of the college, but his apparition is said to still appear within the staircase on dark nights, and he has surprised more than the odd students sleepily walking back to their room. The murder of James Ashton. In 1746, a brutal murder took place in the first court, just next to the library. A student called James Ashton was found stabbed to death in his room. His friend John Brinkley was suspected and accused of the crime, but his wealthy father's lawyers managed to get the charges dropped. Shortly afterwards, John fled the college, never to return, but the vengeful spirit of James Ashton has been heard screaming ever since in the first court building. Girton College, Cambridge. According to a former porter, a man by the name of Peter Wood, he can recall his own encounters with the college's famous Grey Lady ghost. When I first came to the main college at Girton, everyone told me about the Grey Lady. Some say she's the ghost of an ex-mistress or a young girl who died before she came up to Girton. One Christmas at about 2 a.m. in the morning, I was in the lodge on my own and with nobody else in the college. I felt a presence in the room, and I turned around to see a lady in a grey blouse and long grey skirt with a belt and a bunch of keys. After my initial shock, I said, "Hello," and then she disappeared. My theory is that because of the keys, she is possibly an ex-porter who takes exception to male porters, as Girton used to be an all-female college. The hospital wing at Girton is also said to be haunted by World War I soldiers who were treated there. And as an aside, in Cambridge we have the Haunted Bookshop. And perhaps it's an appropriate business to name, as a ghost of an old man is reputed to haunt the basement of this bookshop. An oft-used saying that perhaps many don't think about is the origin of the term Hobson's choice. It actually dates back to 17th century Cambridge, where a Thomas Hobson, the manager of stables behind the George Inn, which coincidentally is now the location of the gatehouse of St Catherine's College, offered a strict no-choice rotation of horses to hire, rather than to allow people to pick the fastest horses, which of course saved them from being overworked. Hence Hobson's choice, or no choice. Hobson, though, was something of a philanthropist and built Cambridge's first poorhouse and a water conduit system to carry fresh water between 1610 and 1614, with a section that is still visible in Trumpington Street. If you ever get down to the green meadows that line the banks of the River Cam, be sure to head to a small roofless classical folly replete with its own coat of arms and facing towards the river. This strange building was once a summer house, built by John Hodson in 1896, who was then employed as a Pembroke College butler. Its purpose was primarily for him to oversee his daughter who swam in the river, and I dare say to enjoy the day on a piece of land that John and his family bought in 1868. Sadly, though, by 1900 he lost his fortune, having been caught in a railway shares scam, and the land was bought the following year by a local brewer who retained it until 1936, when it was sold to the local council and is now made available for public use this day in Coes Fen. Well, that's it from me for now. Hopefully a trip to Cambridge has whetted your appetite, and you'll get to see and enjoy the architectural wonders of this great city, and perhaps much more. But anyway, until the next time.